you have been a coach. You're recently back in the practitioner game of making strong decisions. Yeah, I'm really interested to hear what do you even talk about when you think about product management and product managers as decision makers.
I mean, at its most fundamental part is decision making. That's like the whole heart of it. I mean, when we use the term empowered in product management, we really mean they can make decisions that stick. If you can't make a decision that sticks, you're not empowered. And that's like that classic phrase in all product work that we say we should be empowered. And so to me, I really boiled it all back down to this is the heart of all product work.
What advice do you have for product managers who are trying to be given more rope to make, to be able to make decisions, be able to have, kind of that empowerment?
Trust is really interesting. If I'm honest, I had this really simple hypothesis of the core of trust is making high quality decisions. Trust comes down to two core components. It's character and competence. So someone looks at you and says, that's someone I can trust. That's the character. The kind of, it's an individual, and it's quite humanistic level. And there's competence. They also look at you. Do I think you can make it? Have you got the skills to make that decision? Have you got the skills to do this thing? And those two things combine to provide trust.
What do you think that you've taken the most from what you teach into the professional world that you're working in now?
Definitely that bringing clarity and that storytelling, but the knowing that I can cut through a lot of the noise by bringing that clarity, by stepping back, taking a little bit of time to think, and applying some really fundamental first principles thinking of like, what should we be doing? That's been quite powerful as well. It's like knowing that I don't personally need to solve everything, and then I can rely on the team, because I'm at the heart of my product philosophy is a team mentality. Like, product is a team sport. You can't do anything as just a product manager. You have to work collaboratively.
You give access to Claude, and all of a sudden, like, they're building at the speed of light, but they're not making great decisions about what they're building. You're going to end up managing a lot more bad decisions than you are actually trying to push your business forward.
I think like we're entering the fast fashion era of products, where someone's going to spin something up, use it for like a week, throw it away, but someone else has already decided that they need that thing. But the person who created it just to do a job once isn't going to maintain it, isn't going to look after it.
Sean, we just had an awesome conversation with Phil Hornby, talked about product management, decision making, crafting roadmaps. What were your takeaways?
A lot of great quotes, some one-liners to really make you think about what you're doing on the daily basis. But I really like the quote, "You are paid to have an opinion." Your job as a product person is either disprove or prove that your opinion is right. I just love that at a basic level, that is what we actually do on a daily basis. And it's really important that we trust our opinions and our intuition. Great listen for everybody. Let's get after it.
Let's do it. Joining us today on Product Momentum, we have Phil Hornby. Phil is a highly experienced product leader. He's a coach, a technologist, over 20 years in the industry. He's had a plethora of roles. He's been a product manager, a project manager. He's been operations, development, sales, marketing across software as a service, Internet of Things, and the automotive industry. He's a regular speaker at product events, and he's the co-host of the Talking Roadmap podcast, which you can find on YouTube and wherever else you listen to podcasts. His mission is to help product leaders think clearly, make strong decisions, and take powerful action that drives high impact outcomes. We are super pumped to have you here today, Phil.
It's awesome. When you say it like that, it makes me sound really impressive. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I love this.
Well, I mean, it is impressive. Yeah, I can jump right in, right to, your mission. You have been a coach. You're recently back in the practitioner game. Making strong decisions. I'm really interested to hear, what's your take, what have you been talking about when you think about product management and product managers as decision makers?
I mean, at its most fundamental, product is decision making. That's like the whole heart of it. I mean, when we use the term empowered in product management, we really mean they can make decisions that stick. If you can't make a decision that sticks, you're not empowered. And that's like that classic phrase in all product work that we say we should be empowered. And so to me, I really boiled it all back down to this is the heart of all product work. And I found myself, when I went back into this practitioner role, realizing that, and realizing the clarity on the decision we were making, why we were making it, and getting that into everybody's heads was the most high leverage thing I could do. And so I keep finding myself stepping back and writing Amazon style 1 pages or 6 pages to make a really clear sort of discussion about this is what we've thought about, this is where we're going, this is why we're going this way. Let's all get in line and go this direction together. And at first, it's one of those things I preached for a while, and I wasn't absolutely convinced, if I'm honest. I was a coach, I wasn't doing it. And then I thought, I'm going to try what I preach. And I did. And I just saw the ducks lining up. It's like, right, this actually works. Right, let's do more of it.
That's awesome. When we think about, empowering product managers and decision making, one of the first things that has to happen is that the product manager has to be trusted to make decisions. What advice do you have for product managers who are, trying to be given more rope to make, to be able to make decisions, be able to have, kind of that empowerment?
Trust is a really interesting thing. I gave a talk only last week at Digital Leute in Cologne in Germany. And my talk was about decision making and how it empowers product teams. And one of my one of the other coaches in the audience, who's a good friend, Simonetta, she came up to me afterwards and said there was one slide, it said trust on there. I really wish she'd have double clicked into that and gone even deeper. And she started sharing all her thoughts around it. And if I'm honest, I had this really simple hypothesis of the core of trust is making high quality decisions. And I'll come back to that and unpack it in a second. But she expressed it in a slightly different way that really resonated with me. So I'll share that as well first. She said, trust comes down to two core components. It's character and competence. So someone looks at you and says, that's someone I can trust. That's the character, the kind of, it's an individual, then it's quite humanistic level. Then there's competence. They also look at you. Do I think you can make it? Have you got the skills to make that decision? Have you got the skills to do this thing? And those two things combine to provide trust. And for me, decision making and how you go about decision making, definitely on the competence side, articulates it. So there's a concept called high quality decision making. I want to stress that doesn't mean you always get the right decision. Like, there is no way of guaranteeing a good decision. New information coming tomorrow, or 2 seconds after you decide, or never, and it's still the wrong thing to do. But you can raise your chances, you can raise your odds by making a high quality decision. And that comes down to 6 core things. Firstly, you've got to frame it well. Like, what decision are we making? What's the context we're working in? What are the constraints we've got? And what are the criteria we're going to decide around? We then have to consider different options. Like in product management, there's a common technique called opportunity solution tree. That's a technique for looking at lots of options, looking at optionality, and then creating a set of criteria for how you decide, like what experiments are we going to do to validate them. But even if we just simplify it, it's more than that. If we look at Matt LeMay's high impact product teams, he talks about having 3 scenarios, at least 3 scenarios, not 1, not 2. 1 is a yes, no. 2 is an A or B, or I guess no to all of them. But forcing yourself to find that 3rd scenario makes you start thinking harder, because most humans stop at 1 or 2 typically. We've got something, we can make a choice. If you make yourself go to 3, all of a sudden you start to see more options and more things. Often as soon as you hit 3, you've got 4 or 5 in your head, because you can start to think about those different paths you can go. You then have to support it. So I like to talk about being evidence informed, not data driven, because data can tell you anything. Like I'm a product manager. I can massage the data to show whatever the heck I want it to do. But we want to bring data in there. Data is a form of evidence. It's quantitative evidence. Then we have anecdotes or feedback. That's our qualitative evidence that helps us understand that. But we're humans. We also have intuition or opinion. And dare I say it, as product managers, we are paid to have an opinion. We are paid to have taste, to understand our markets, to bring that tacit knowledge, which some people like to call product sense, and apply it to the context, to the situation we're in, and make a judgment call to bring them all 3 together, really. And that's why it's informed, because the human's still making the decision, based on things, but what you're trying to do is bring those 3 things out and express them all together and say, this, and this, all informed together, give us different perspectives and allow us to then make a judgment. And then we need to look at the trade-offs. Like, so we've got, if I go this way, what's it result in? If I go this way, what's it result in? If I go that way, what does it result in? Because there are never, well, what's in never, but very rarely, black and white, this is the only path forwards. It's like, if I go this way, it's really great for revenue, but it's terrible for, I don't know, for our reputation. Whatever it is, there's going to be different things that you're trading off, and you've got to make those judgment calls as to what's important and what's not. And so what have I said? I said framing, I've said options, I've talked about the evidence to support it. We're then trading off. I know there's 6 parts here. Oh, how can I forget this? We then have to tell the story. Like, humans have been telling stories for 100,000 years. It's only the last few hundred years we've been writing things down in a way that the vast majority of the populace can understand and learn from it. But we haven't been just passing knowledge in the last few hundred years. We've been passing it on generationally through storytelling. It is baked into the way our brain works. So if you want to get a human on board, tell them a story. Use some narrative structure. Use 3 parts like situation, complication, and resolution as one story structure, which is one that the presentation goddess Nancy Duarte recommends in her book Data Story, for example. And then finally, the 6th part, you've got to take action. You've got to commit to taking action. To paraphrase a great Japanese proverb, decision without action is lie. Action without decision is chaos.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, I was thinking back to studying abroad in Belgium, and my Dutch stats professor mentioning the 3 types of lies, right? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics about, being able to massage data however you want it to. And then I love that comment about, decisions not being black and white. Like, if, as a product person, if you find yourself making a decision that's black and white, like, is this even really a thing that we should be focusing on? Like, does it have any real value if it's that simple?
And I mean, the reason I emphasize this high quality decision making thing is, and I didn't create this, right? I learned it from a great product leader in the US called Jonathan Gowans, and I stole it. And then the 3 lenses I stole from Ravi Mehta, and I brought them together because it all just kind of synthesized well for me. And it really comes down to this really simple thing. We assume that as a human, you know how to make decisions. Just let that sink in for a second. We assume that you know how to make decisions, but none of us have ever been taught how to make a decision. We don't actively think about it generally. It's just we're alive. We didn't make really bad decisions and die, so we know how to make decisions. Or maybe we're lucky and made a few in the past that were successful, and we're assumed through survivor bias and things like that to be able to make good decisions. And maybe we can through our intuition, but odds are we could have made a lot of better decisions.
Well, there's our tagline, Sean, for this episode.
I like it. Yeah. I think you said you are not paid to have an opinion. And
no, you are paid to have an opinion.
Sorry, you are paid to have an opinion. Thank you. You said you're paid to have an opinion. And I like that because it's not you're paid to be right all the time, right? You are paid to be an eventual part of the solution, right? You are not going to be right all the time, right? If you are, you get paid more, but you still get paid to have an opinion and be a part of a solution. So you've recently rejoined the ranks of working in product versus helping us be better in product and telling everybody how to be better in product. What do you think that you've taken the most from what you teach into the professional world that you're working in now?
It's definitely that bringing clarity and that storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely been humbled by some parts of, like, some of the things I thought were just going to be trivial to deal with. like the politics of a large organization. Like I'm in a 43 billion euro company and 220,000 people. I'm in a small corner of it, and the politics are challenging at times. And I'm reminded of that. I'm reminded of the simplicity of being a one man in their own company, and so on. But the knowing that I can cut through a lot of the noise by bringing that clarity, by stepping back, taking a little bit of time to think, and applying some really fundamental first principles thinking of like, what should we be doing?
Mhm.
Bring, in particular, in the first 6 months, which I've just finished, also bring those fresh eyes, knowing that I don't know everything. And like, so I can pick up a rock and I can see something and think, ooh, that looks a bit squirrely. Let's kind of dig into it. Or that looks a bit squirrely, but I don't think I want to touch that one. I'm going to put that rock back and come back to it in 6 months. I'm going to find the ones that need to be dealt with right now. That's been quite powerful as well. It's like knowing that I don't personally need to solve everything, and then I can rely on the team, because I'm at the heart of my product philosophy is a team mentality. Like, product is a team sport. You can't do anything as just a product manager. You have to work collaboratively. So getting everyone on the same page, to me, is the heart of everything that I've focused on in the last 6 months. Kind of building those relationships, getting alignment with everybody.
Dan and I have a unique world that we live in because we're in the service industry and we work with a lot of different clients, across a lot of different verticals. I think right now, within active projects we have going, we're in 14 different industries, right? Um, I hear difficulty with decision making from a lot of different organizations, whether it's they're trying to make decisions strictly based on financials, or there's some fear of being wrong because of the employment situation in the U.S. right now. What do you think some of the challenges were that you saw with decision making when you like first came into your organization?
So interestingly, the team had gone through a major restructuring, so there were a bunch of gaps. So there were definitely people that were just avoiding some of the decisions. Like, there were people that I know could see some of the issues, but were just choosing to be blind to them, because if they took that decision on, the other things that they were just about keeping going were going to get dropped. And
Yeah.
so sometimes there's that simple reality of I can only carry so much load. And so there were the decision that was being made was to not make a decision, but that is a decision in its own right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that's powerful because you said ultimately, we are as good as the decisions that we're making, right? And if we feel like we are not empowered to make, if we feel like we are not empowered to make decisions, or if we have some fear behind making decisions, we are eventually going to hold everyone else up.
Yeah.
I think you listen to a podcast, it's probably about AI today, and at some point they'll talk about everybody being a builder, right? Everybody's a builder now, right? Because of the tools that are available to you. So how, ultimately, like at some point, in order to build something, you have to make the decision of what you are going to build. And I think that we need to ensure, as product people moving forward, that it's still understood that like building is great, but if you build at a large, if you give everybody, you're cognizant and you give 350,000 employees access to Claude, and all of a sudden, like they're building at the speed of light, but they're not making great decisions about what they're building, you're going to end up managing a lot more bad decisions than you are actually trying to push your business forward.
yeah, I mean, AI becomes the new Excel. It's where all the shadow IT and tech debt turns up.
Yeah.
I think like we're entering the fast fashion era of products, where someone's going to spin something up, use it for like a week, throw it away, but someone else has already decided that they need that thing. But the person who created it just to do a job once isn't going to maintain it, isn't going to look after it. Especially if they're like, if I'm honest, I've got great ideas. I can play around with and are lovable for a day and come up with something cool that's a great prototype. But it ain't production level, and I'm not going to look after it at in that level of intimacy beyond the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Melissa Perry was talking about this recently, how, with the increase of being able to build an AI, that instead of escaping the build trap, right, we're just diving into it with both feet.
Yeah.
Um,
And like if literally the marginal cost goes so low that I can spin it up when I need it and then just throw it away and spin it up next time I need something, then maybe that's okay. But I'm not convinced. Like, so there's a hypothesis that a bunch of people I know have that say that, okay, data and kind of getting it presented, for example, going up into senior leadership, AI is a great example of a tool for that because they can just ask for the data they want and it goes to the tools and it surfaces it in the way that they want it. But we want some standardization on how we report. I would have thought, like every team looking the same way and going across it. And so then you start get to standard user experience and things like that, that actually you're going to get like, I know that it's probabilistic when I use AI. So I get something different every time I use the same prompt. So I'm not going to get that consistency, like my board meeting notes every week or every month or whatever we're meeting are not going to be the same and not going to be comparable. It's going to make it much harder in some respects. So I think there's a lot of things still to shake out there.
yeah. I want to go back to one thing you said before. You talked about evidence-informed versus data-driven decision-making. We made some good jokes about how easy it is to flub some statistics. How do you think that somebody gets to the point where they feel like they are evidence-informed? How do you feel like you get to that point where you know, hey, I'm actually working with real, my decisions are going to be based on real qualitative or quantitative info?
And intuition, that's the
And
point. And in fact, sometimes they might make a purely intuition-based decision, or as Tony Fadell would say, an opinion-based decision. In Build, he talks about a number of times where things around the iPod, the iPhone, and the Nest thermostat, they just knew it was an opinion-based decision, and that was the type of decision they were making. So making it explicit, kind of taking that a lot, often with intuition, it's all just up in your head. And so part of it, one of the things I like to do is kind of lay it out as a canvas. Like I have this simple canvas that across the top you have situation, complication, resolution. That's the storytelling. And across the bottom you have data, feedback, and then you have your intuition. It's about expressing them all, making sure they're all visible to everyone to inspect. Like, this is why we're saying it. This is the data we've got. And I like to do some nice data visualization on that. I'm a fan of making it pretty. Feedback, I generally put in the form of quotes from customers or users because it's really emotive. But then my intuition is like, what am I thinking? Why do I feel that this is the right way? And often often these aren't on a level playing field. Like different decisions will have more or less of each of them, but also we'll start at different points. Let's take an example. Throughout a support team, we hear a load of complaints about a particular problem. I don't know what it is, but we hear a load of problem. We hear about a particular problem. That's feedback. That's that qualitative information. We dive into the data. We look at all the tickets. We start to find some quantitative information. We've got some data, and we start stack ranking what we think. We maybe use some AI to categorize the things we're seeing in the tickets, and we can see, oh, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 things on the list. We've gone from feedback. We've gone to data. And now we take our human eyes and we look in and say, well, according to what we've kind of done so far, number 1 would be the one we should work on. But my intuition says it's more likely number 2 or 3 because that's what I've seen really happen in the real world. And so we often go around in this in a loop, starting in one place and ending in another, but using them all to kind of compare. I mean, I think there's an Amazon principle in their decision making where they talk about data and anecdotes, so data and feedback again. And one of the rules that they have from memory is if the anecdote doesn't match the data, we're going to trust the anecdote because we probably don't understand the data well enough yet or don't have the right data. And to me, I'm looking for that dissonance is quite important, is something to spot. If they don't match, why? Maybe we need to dig deeper. If they do match, the anecdotes are helping us to understand the data. That's really what qualitative data gives, or evidence gives us. It gives us the understanding on top of the quants. then that's where we're getting. That's what helps us to kind of get into that position.
Interesting. I want to shift gears a little bit um, into one of my favorite subjects, product roadmaps. We were talking about decision making, trying to make good decisions, and the roadmap. As a product manager, is kind of the tapestry upon which we're staking our decisions. Um, I'm curious, because I'm working on one right now. Yeah, what advice do you have for product managers who are trying to, you know, take that blend of data, being data informed and, you know, providing the anecdotal evidence into a meaningful roadmap that can tell the story and where you're trying to take the product, where you think the most important bets are?
Or maybe I'll start with a nice little soundbite for you. A roadmap is just an articulation of decisions. It's decisions about what we're going to do and roughly when or in what order. And so it comes back to the same fundamental decision making. Although I would say, I mean, the way I've expressed it, it feels like a really big, heavy process. It can be really lightweight. You've got to understand that there are different decision types. There are small decisions, those so-called two-way doors where you can change direction, and there are big decisions where it's consequential, you can't change direction. So you've got to think about how much rigor you put in. But I've just gone off the roadmap subject for a second. So roadmaps, I mean, I love it. I host a channel called Talking Roadmaps, right? Um, really, I'm looking for to have that evidence behind each of those decisions. Like some of the things are going to be purely qualitative. I know personally, I'm a pretty qualitatively driven product person. I'm not massively on data. Just it's probably just my age because we didn't have that much data when I was doing product work. Yeah, if you got a market study from Gartner or someone like that, you were doing well. And so I learned to do much more from that intuition and qualitative, the feedback, talking to customers angle. And now I have to remind myself to go and get the data. But just knowing that you don't need everything for every decision is probably useful. Like if you got strong anecdotes or feedback from customers that make it really clear, then you maybe got enough evidence for a particular item on your roadmap. Maybe you wanted to go and do some, take some prototypes and do some further validation, remembering that discovery ultimately is the act of de-risking. Your product discovery, that is all about risk management. That's its entire purpose. And what are we doing it for? We're doing it for four different things. Is it valuable to our business? Is it valuable to our customers? Is it useful to our users? And can we actually build it? That's all the discovery is doing. It's taking a risk away from those four areas. And so you might make a decision to get more evidence by doing a prototype. We run experiments. They are just about gathering evidence to take that risk away. And in fact, you might put those experiments on your roadmap. Jana Bastow is famous for the now, next, and later roadmap. I like to take it to another layer. I call it deliver, discover, explore. Because one of my biggest problems I've found in the past is that when salespeople see now, next, and later, they look at everything that they want and it's in the later column and they say, why are you not working on my thing? If I reframe it as deliver, discover, and explore, I can say I am working on it, but I'm understanding it. I'm exploring this problem space. So I'm doing stuff. It's just really early doors. And then I'm into discovery. I'm now really digging into and understanding the problems and evaluating solutions. And finally, when I get to delivery, I'm happy to write a feature on my roadmap because I've already done the discovery. I know what we're going to ship. And so that reframing more into the activities, which generally have a time horizon, I find just helps the conversation with those commercial partners.
Yeah, I got to go update a Miro now with deliver, discover, explore roadmap. You keep knocking off here. Now, next, later roadmaps. Objective-based roadmaps are really where the discipline's going. I grew up in the world of roadmaps where you had like 4 quarters and you're putting features in there. And every time I update the roadmap, the features that are 4 quarters out I just didn't touch, and I updated like the next 2 quarters. But yeah, what advice would you have for organizations that are kind of in that transitory period between, just bulleted features, in a kind of a timeline, and they're trying to get into more objective based roadmaps, and how do you kind of move along there?
So I actually map it as a 3 by 3 or maybe 3 by 4 matrix, and you're on this maturity path. You might start down in the bottom left-hand corner with time-based, feature-based roadmaps. That might be where you find yourself. And you might want to get all the way over to the top right-hand corner of maybe it's deliver, discover, explore, and I would actually say mixed content roadmaps. And you say going to outcome-based or objective-based roadmaps is where you're going to. I actually think it's more mature to have a mixture and actually show the features when you have the clarity on the features. When you know that's what you're going to do, whether it's a high integrity commitment or you've already done the discovery, but the organization will struggle because what they don't get is, well, why can I have a feature here and not over here? That's really hard for some people to get their head around. So that's why I put that as a more mature state that you might have to go through a pure everything is both objective and a feature. That's often where people start out as a transition to more outcome-oriented roadmaps. But mapping your path, do we want to change the timing or do we want to change the content? Like, don't try and change both at the same time. Do we want to go from literally days, months, weeks, etc., to then maybe time boxes of quarters, half years, full years, to then ultimately now, next, and later, or even deliver, discover, and explore? Kind of that's a path you can go on in terms of changing the timing information. You don't have to go linearly that way. You might go a little bit that way and then a little bit the other way of let's start putting some outcomes onto the roadmap. But don't try and go from the most basic to the most advanced in one step. You will break your organization.
Yeah. Break yourself too. Um, nah, you say that and bring you back to the telling the story that like I've had in my personal experience that you know, talking to stakeholders and saying, "Hey, we're going after this objective," doesn't always land the same way as like, "Hey, this is the thing that we're looking to solve." Like this is what we're doing. Like that tends to resonate more, and they feel more heard. That like, okay, like you are working through the problems that I care about.
I mean, putting what I like to put on are the jobs to be done or the user outcomes. Like, what are we going to needle we're going to move for the customer or the user, not necessarily not the needle we're going to move for ourselves. Especially if you're to show it externally. If you show the jobs to be done for the customer on the roadmap, it's really useful externally, and your internal teams can pretty much figure out that's how it helps us as well, as opposed to the feature. Sometimes you've got to show both. Like when it comes to objective setting, I really like Ravi Mehta's NCTs, narratives, commitments, and tasks, because what it does is, unlike OKRs, it accepts that sometimes we know some of the things we need to do, and we might just want to articulate them. And so we put the tasks there and we say, these are the things we think we need to do. But there's a really simple heuristic. If we achieve all of the commitments, but none of the tasks, we've been successful. If we achieve all of the tasks, but none of the commitments, we failed. And so it's just allowing us to get those things out, because chances are your sales team have got a bunch of ideas. Like, so that conversation of, great, I'm really interested in listening, tell me about them. Putting them down and saying, well, these are possible solutions to the thing we're going to drive towards. But we're going to need to do some discovery. We're going to evaluate it. And we might pick something different, but we're still listening because it helps us understand the problem that they see that customers have.
Phil, thank you so much for being with us today. If you are listening and you want to hear more from Phil, just go straight to the Talking Roadmaps podcast. Whether you're a fan of Phil or just a fan of anything orange, that's the place to go. Okay. Some key takeaways from our conversation today. So I liked that kind of like equation of trust equals character plus competence. I think that was pretty. I thought that was pretty poignant. High quality decision making does not always equal good decision making, right? You reference Matt LeMay's book, and we are Matt LeMay is a big friend of the podcast. So encourage everybody to get out there and go read Matt LeMay's most recent book. Evidence informed over data driven decision making. I really like that one. We're kind of really breaking like a industry norm there. You're paid to have an opinion, and do not discount your intuition. So I think I think trusting yourself and trusting your opinions is a big part of being a great product manager.
I guess I'd just layer on that it's that whole strong opinions loosely held. You're always seeking to prove yourself wrong. You're expected to have a strong opinion, but you also got to know that you might be wrong and go and try and find the data that disproves you, not just the things that prove you.
Yeah.
Love that.
And then discovery is the art of de-risking. I know that was a quote from somebody else, but I pulled that. I really liked that one. One thing that we always ask at the end of every podcast episode, because not everybody has the bookshelf space that you have, but everybody likes to read, whether they're doing it on a digital device or whether they're with the trusty paperback. What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? I've literally just finished rereading Inspired. And the reason being that I'm running a community of practice and a book club there, and a bunch of people wanted to read it. Before that, a less well-known one, we just finished Product-Led Sales by Vincent Young, which is a book on bringing product-led growth and sales-led growth together and making them live in harmony. And it's a really powerful way of looking at, especially in the enterprise space.
That's nonfiction, you said?
What was that? Sorry?
That's a nonfiction book, you said? Bring sales and product led together in the same space?
Yeah, and in fact, I've seen it in a number of organizations, and he, in fact, has implemented it as a founder as well.
Yeah. Another great place to hear more from Phil is on LinkedIn, where he actually talks about that. Where he talks about that book club where they read that specific book. So another good place to hear more from Phil. Thank you again so much for being here today.
Absolute pleasure. Always love having a product conversation.
All right, and we'll start our beer podcast up next. We'll join the world of beer podcasting.
Sounds good.
All right.